Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're taking a look at the Warcry Metawatch. This video is sponsored by CMO Games. More on that later. Warcry Metawatch, negotiating the Gnarlwood with new rules. So this has been long awaited. I know people have been asking for new Seraphon rules since the range got refreshed, so this is absolutely awesome that we're finally getting this, even though it is long overdue. Big things are afoot in the mortal realms, but amid all of Sigmar's lies, eruptions of Skaven, and reclusions called out of retirement for one last job, smaller battles are still bubbling away, as lethal as ever. Warcry is the mortal realms zoomed in. Desperate skirmishes on the rugged outskirts as two bands of brawlers whose martial expertise shines on the smallest stage. It's been a while since we've had a balance update, and with dozens of new warbands at large across the realms, the time has come for changes. Metawatch caught up with Warcry product developer John to unpack what's up, from rule tweaks to entirely new fighters. So there's a little video to go along with it. You can check that out if you want. The video is a must-watch for all Warcry players, as John goes into current meta, discussing Chaff and Titans, and the ways the team have attempted to strike a balance. On top of that, there's plenty of discussion on points changes and new units, including the likes of the Grimhold Exile, Kharadron Riders, and the Harbingers of Decay. The wildest changes have come to the Seraphon, the Night Haunt, the Kharadron Overlords, but to find out what they are, you'll have to download the whole document below. So I think this is really important. Obviously, the Seraphon had new units since they got their range refresh, and it's been a long time, so this is well overdue for them to get data sheets for like a lot of these new units, and to just overall get an update. The Kharadron Overlords have very powerful shooting, and it definitely needed to be adjusted a bit, because it can for sure be overwhelming in Warcry, especially on such a small board. And then the Night Haunt have always felt like they were slightly off in a way. Movement in Warcry is extremely important, and then also obviously like the ability to fly. And it definitely seemed like with some units in particular that this wasn't taken into account for when determining their points or abilities. So let's take a look at the actual document here. And then we know there's going to be likely a new refresh coming when we get the Age of Sigmar 4.0 with new data sheets for like the Stormcast Eternals and Skaven in particular. Alright, so we got our Warcry rules update and designer's commentary April 2024. And we can see the things that they have made changes on. Looks like Part 3, Warbands of Gur, Part 4, Warcry Compendium, and then Part 6, Points Updates. And then for Warbands of Gur, we see Hunters of Haunchy have a rules update, Wildercorp Hunters have a rules update, and then a little change in the wording for the Quester Soulstorm, kruleboyz Monster Killer again. And this is important because it just specifies the actual Grand Alliance of these warbands, which it was pretty obvious before for most people, but it's nice to actually have it like in the book somewhere written down, because for whatever reason it was left off of these, which was kind of odd. Alright, and then for the actual Warcry Compendium, so some new fighter profiles and abilities for the Grimhold Exile, the Volkite Berserker with Fire Steel weapons and Bladed Sling Shield. We have the Code Right, and then the Kharadron Overlord's fighter ability. So nice whenever a new model comes out for them to actually have a Warcry data slate as well. A lot of times they'll put them in White Dwarf, which is pretty cool, but it is nice to have them here. Alright, and then Seraphon, I think this was the most important because it definitely felt like that faction was just missing so much stuff that you really couldn't play them in a viable way, especially with all the new models, and then just had been so long since they got an update. So we do have the Kharadron Lancer Alpha, two options there, the Club and the Spear. Then we have the Kharadron Lancer with Celestite Club and Spear, not the Alpha. And then we have our Raptidon Charger, Raptidon Hunter, the spawn of Chotek, and then of course the Raptidon Hunter Alpha, Raptidon Charger Alpha, and the Scar Veteran on Kharadron. Alright, and then still for Seraphon here, we see the Kroxigor and Kroxigor Warspawn, another dual kit that got two different cards here. So very cool. And then we have new ability cards. And then we have new fighter abilities, which is definitely awesome. So very cool. Definitely happy to see this. Happy to see the changes, the updates, and finally this get addressed. Alright, and then moving on from there, we have the Agents of Chaos. Some slight little changes here. New data slate for the Harbinger of Decay with Doombell. Absolutely beautiful model. Again, very cool that you're able to take him now in Warcry. And we'll see that the addition of most of the new stuff is actually just additions of individual characters that are now offered for Age of Sigmar / Warcry. Lord of Hubris added as well. Alright, and then into Chaos. So we have the Chosen Champion and regular Chosen. We have the Ogroid Theridons with Falchion and Shield or Axe, and then a character version as well. We have the Mortison Ossifector. And then for Destruction, we have the Rabble Rouser, Squig Boss on Nasha Squig, Snarlfang Git Boss, Snarlfang Rider. And then we see the Blood Pelt Hunter finally getting a card as well. Now a quick message from today's sponsor. CMO Games has been selling Games Workshop products online for over 20 years. They carry the full line of Games Workshop products, including Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, Necromunda, Blood Bowl, paint tools, and more. Almost all Games Workshop products are priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games takes pre-orders for most Games Workshop products released at their earliest date possible. 12:01 a.m. on Saturday, they go live. Most of these pre-order products are also priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games offer free shipping in the US 48 with an order of $50 or more. Their customer service is top-notch and they ship most orders within 24 hours. Visit CMOGames.com using the affiliate link in the description and let them know that you heard about CMO Games from Warhammer Man. Now, back to the video. And then I think most importantly for the actual balance, we have our points updates. So quite a bit changing here with the points. One thing I did notice is since the last time they changed the monsters points, people are taking them a lot less. They definitely feel a lot more balanced. Felt extreme at the time jacking up the points, but I think overall it's better for the game. It's better for the meta because you can still take them viably. They're still very good, but they're not spammed in the same way they were before. And they do cost enough now that for newer players or out of the box warbands, it doesn't feel like it's impossible to beat somebody who does field a monster. So we see some points drops for the Canaanite Shadowstalkers. We see massive points increases for the Kharadron Overlords. Some of these fighters going up as much as 20 points. We see the Thunderstrike Stormcast going up, and then also a couple for the Warrior Chamber. To tell you the truth, the Thunderstrike stuff doesn't surprise me because Annihilators were just so good before, and they were just so cheap. Because they have such a high toughness, a bunch of wounds, and they hit so hard, it definitely felt like just out of the box, you could just do a little too much with them. Although they are slow, so that was definitely a limiting factor. And then for Seraphon, we've got a couple of points cuts. Same for Hunters of Haunchy as well. Foamoid Crusher went up by 10 points. Same with the Ogroid Myrmidon. I think that was just bound to happen. The Foamoid Crusher was just too popular in lists. It was very obvious that people were taking him because he's so good. So it makes sense that he would go up 10 points. But I don't think that changes much. Disciples of Tzeentch Arcanites going down pretty heavy in some cases. 20 points on a lot of them. Maggotkin up by a couple points. Corvus Cabal, Shrike Talon down by 40. That's a big change. Cypher Lords down a couple points. Tarantulas Broodlord down a couple points. Horns of Hashut, Shatterer going up a couple points. Rotmire Creed down a few points. Claws of Karanok down a couple points. Looks like overall just a couple of tweaks. Nothing too crazy. There's a couple big changes here, but typically on fighters that you had never seen before, so maybe they will start showing up. We do see Nighthaunt got some cuts here. 15, 5, 20, 20, 5, 15. So realistically, depending on what you were taking before, likely that you're able to get at least one new fighter in there now. Osiarch Bone Reapers going up by a few points. Soulblight Gravelords, we see a few things going up by 10 points, including the zombies and skeletons. So that's going to slightly decrease on the spam there. If you were taking a bunch of zombies or skeletons, the difference between 40 and 50 points on them is going to decrease your total fighters by like at least 1 or 2. So that's definitely a big change. And then just finishing up here, we see for Gloomspite Gits, the Brugit and the Netter going up by 20 and 15 points. I think that had to happen. The Brugit is such a good buffing character, and then the Netta was just so cheap at 50 points. I don't think that's going to be a make or break. Iron Jaws going up by a few points on the Ardboys and the Brute Boss. And then the Ogre Maw Tribes, the Tyrant was so good, going up by 10 points. Gutlord, Crusher, and then Quiv all going up by 10 and 15 points. So I think overall makes sense. There's nothing too crazy in here. I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of feedback from the community as some things get missed. Maybe some things get a little bit too much of a cut or not enough of a cut. But definitely happy to see them throwing some love at Warcry. They've been pretty good about giving new fighter cards for stuff as it's coming out. But there was definitely a big gap there where they missed a lot of stuff, obviously including the Seraphon. I do expect them to keep up with it as AOS 4.0 comes out. And then hopefully once they're back on par, we won't see these like big gaps with updates. So let me know what you're most excited about. What changed for your warband? Did it go up? Did it go down? Are some things more viable now or not viable at all? It's definitely a shame that they cut out some of the warbands and we see like some big changes to like the actual range and what's available. Always like to hear back from you guys in the comments. Special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring the channel. Check out the link in the description to save 15% on Games Workshop products. That's it for today. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man, and I'm out of here.